The majority of those who died today were children. Beautiful little kids between the ages of 5 and 10 years old. This evening, Michelle and I will do what I know every parent in America will do, which is hug our children a little tighter, and we'll tell them that we love them. And we're going to have to come together and take meaningful action to prevent more tragedies like this, regardless of the politics.
Mental illness and hatred pulls the trigger, not the gun.
All of us can extend a hand to those in need, to remind them that we are there for them, that we are praying for them, that the love they felt for those they lost endures not just in their memories, but also in ours.
May God protect them. May God protect all of those from Texas to Ohio. May God bless the victims and their families. May God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good evening. Welcome to tonight's special of Active Cases. I'm Victoria Jones and I'll be your host for this evening. In the wake of the recent El Paso massacre, the need for gun control has become an increasingly apparent issue, which can no longer be ignored. During tonight's episode, we'll be hearing from both sides of the argument. They're the words of the US government representative, Phoebe Ross, representative of the gun control campaign, Kobe Munro, and campaign media specialist, Claudia Pan. The El Paso shooting took place this morning, Saturday, the 3rd of August, a day which is bound to live in infamy. People of this small, once innocent town are now left in mourning of the 22 individuals who lost their lives as a direct result of a 21-year-old gunman who opened fire in a Walmart this morning. The centre was packed with back-to-school shoppers, but what could have been an enjoyable Saturday morning turned sour when the young gunman started to pick off his targets one by one. This situation may seem tragic, however, it is one of the many shootings US citizens encounter every year. These tragedies indicate a clear need for increased gun control for the sake of innocent lives which are stolen one bullet at a time. Now, we will be hearing from our correspondent, Kobe Munro, live in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Thanks, Victoria. It's true that the United States sees more mass shootings than these of other developed countries. However, it is the rapid rate that these mass shootings are becoming more and more frequent that is alarming. The frequent occurrence of firearm-related violence and mass shootings has quickly evolved to what can only be considered undoubtedly as a gun violence epidemic. Nevertheless, despite the shocking statistics being released and updated daily, the US government refuses to budge. The US government, contaminated with politicians closely knit to agreements with lobbyists, do nothing. They did nothing when 22 people were killed in an El Paso shooting, or even when 26 people were shot dead in Dayton, Ohio. Or even when 26 teachers and children under the age of 8 were shot dead at Sandy Hook Elementary School. The age-old adage of thoughts and prayers provided by politicians is no longer a sufficient remedy to the brutality that is tainting the US. Therefore, I have developed a campaign amongst other activists where we prepare to advocate for the application of gun control in the United States. This campaign strives for both immediate and long-term goals which can be attained by the use of tactical campaigning. Our immediate goal is the enforcement of new policies which will eradicate the mass shooting problem the US is currently experiencing. In an ideal situation, this issue would be resolved if the US government implemented policies which align with those that have been enforced in other developed countries, such as New Zealand and Australia. An example being, a person must hold a firearm license to obtain a gun, which can be awarded when a genuine reason is given. When this policy comes into motion, the US government is to conduct a national buyback program to eradicate all illegally owned guns. The long-term goal, which this campaign targets, is to encourage a shift in thinking within society. We aim to be able to properly educate citizens on the non-necessity for firearms as a self-defense weapon, rather to reassociate guns with what they truly are, a deadly weapon with the power to kill.
Phoebe, what is your position on this argument?
Well, Victoria, there is certainly an abundance of rebuttal I prepared to that argument. The long-standing debate of gun control versus gun rights in the US can be traced back to the origins of the US Constitution. The Second Amendment of the US Constitution pertains to the protection of the individual right to keep and bear arms. When James Madison penned the document, he stated, "The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." The policies entailed in this amendment has, over time, evolved into a culture of guns and ultimately gun violence, which is embedded into US society. As a representative of the US government, I cannot ignore the dependence and widespread popularity which firearms have into the lives and homes of everyday Americans. In fact, 37% of households report owning a gun. It is important to recognise that the pro-gun ethos have become so entrenched in the Republican Party that to consider the enforcement of gun control policies is almost considered outrageous and would demand a deconstruction of the US government and economy. To put this in perspective, the revenue of the firearm industry to the US economy is over $42.9 billion annually. Additionally, the desertion of guns is simply not an option, as they are undoubtedly a huge and valued part of American society. The strength and dominating power of the gun rights movement, seen through the establishment of organisations such as the Second Amendment Foundation, indicates that what some Democrats may perceive as a need for gun control does not align with individual wants and needs. Stakeholders such as the promoters, negative leaders and supporters exercise a direct amount of contact with the media and consequently have a large domain of control of much of the population, the silent opponents.
In order to conduct an effective campaign, the use of certain tactics and strategies which aid in achieving the desired outcome and ultimately achieve the campaign goal is paramount. As a campaign media specialist, I can identify which techniques would be the most effective, particularly for this campaign and its specific goals. Campaigning is often described as a multifaceted set of activities. However, the most commonly used and action-demanding of these activities include the use of news and social media platforms to promote a message, and the exertion of political pressure through petitions and protests. This campaign utilises both strategies by establishing our own website, which promotes the key message of the campaign and hosts a home where like-minded individuals can passionately express themselves, and by founding a petition titled Change the Legislations on Gun Violence. The utilisation of this website titled We Are the People for Change, which can be seen on your screen now, and the use of this petition fostered the growth and promotion of our campaign. Moreover, by extracting successful tools of previous campaigns and implementing them into our modern day campaign for gun control, we encourage an effective movement. A prominent historical campaign which is notorious for its successful use of tactics and strategies is the Australian suffragette movement. By analysing of this movement, we can identify that the use of petitioning, exertion of political pressure, and demonstration of rallies and other mass meetings was a key factor contributing to the campaign's potency. However, another campaign technique which both the suffragette movement and our gun control campaign partake in is the identification and analysis of stakeholders. Stakeholders are people or parties that have an important relationship with the issue at hand. In this instance of this gun control campaign, the four key stakeholders are gun rights advocacy organisations, otherwise known as promoters, Republicans such as Donald Trump and Charlton Heston, otherwise known as negative leaders, the majority of US citizens who remain silent, collectively referred to as the silent opponents, and supporters of the Second Amendment and gun rights advocates. The relationship with these stakeholders have with the gun violence differs greatly, and therefore so does their effect on our campaign. For instance, the NRA, National Rifle Association, has an annual budget of $300 million, which provides them a financial advantage in promoting their message to the public. However, stakeholders such as the silent opponents have opinions and messages which are just as valid, but due to their limitations in finding an outlet to promote their message, they are silenced and lose their voice in this issue. Ultimately, the media habits which each stakeholder displays is a direct reflection of their access and relationship with media outlets.
Thank you, Claudia, for that exemplary insight. In this year alone, the total number of gun-related violence incidents is approximately 35,000. However, there is no measurement accurate enough to depict the magnitude that gun-related violence has on everyday lives. If Americans are not victims themselves, then they are more likely to have witnessed it, know someone who was shot, or live in fear for the next shooting. The issue of gun-related violence is growing rapidly and exhibits no signs of slowing down. The US is facing an epidemic. Their only choice is to act now and act fast. It is not too late to preserve the hope of a safe America, but we need your support. That's all for this evening. Thank you for your time and good night.